Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. Man, this was just like an impromptu podcast that we put together. Ken Joslin, for those of you who aren't aware, is he's a force of a human. He'll tell us his whole story, but he's a pastor turned real estate entrepreneur, turned podcast host, turned author. Now he's a full-time motivational. I guess you're more than just a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
You're just a motivational guy. You got masterminds. You're mentoring folks. And I met, we were actually the power of social media. We actually met via Instagram, like, I don't know, must have been like a year and a half ago or a year.
Yeah, right during COVID or right after COVID started.
Yeah, so all of us were just kind of biding our time and trying to get through COVID. And I think a lot of folks became pretty active on social media. And we actually met just because of our similar interests and trying to help people maximize their potential. And I actually was on your podcast for a bit there. And I'm excited to have you on mine, man. So welcome to the Dr. Mudgil
Dude,
podcast.
I'm honored to be here, man. Anytime I get to hang out with you is a good time. It's been a minute since I flew into New York City, and we all had lunch downtown that time.
Yeah, so a funny story. So Ken now, and he'll tell us a bit more about it, basically flies all around the country speaking and mentoring folks. So Ken was in town. It was last winter, actually, when you were in town. And we met on Friday for lunch. You were mentoring someone in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
flew
one-on-one client, yep.
You flew down just to hang out in the city for a day, basically just to have lunch.
Yeah, just to see
day.
you and a couple other guys. That was it, yeah.
And then you flew out that day back to Birmingham where you live, and your client flew back to New Hampshire. But what I thought about that was, I thought that was it was very impressive to me that you did that, because you'd been in New Hampshire. It was a Friday. I'm sure you wanted to get back to your family. But, a big part of your platform is making connections, building bridges, putting folks in the same room. You say that a lot, like, who are you in the room with? Yeah. Make sure you're in the room with people who are thinking bigger, thinking big, just folks that can inspire you. Yeah. And the fact that you made that trip down there, first of all, it meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You wanted to be in the same room as a guy like me. But it was awesome. It was awesome getting to know you and just kind of, and I know we've spoken about this before and I've commented on some of your posts. Like, you're a guy that's just like, you're full of a tremendous amount of energy, but you're really just a very motivating guy. You have like all these like sweet little 3 or 4 word catchphrases that are contagious. I walked away from that lunch like thinking of all these like little phrases you have. And the more I say this a lot in my own platform, the more you hear those things, the more it starts to become a part of you. So thanks for sharing all that stuff, and thanks for doing all you do, man.
No, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, you talk about relationships. People ask me all the time, how do you get around some of the people you get around? Like I have an unbelievable mastermind. We were talking a little bit off air about our mastermind, several 8-figure earners, a lot of 7-figure earners. I've got a text thread there's 6 of us on it. 3 or 4 of those guys are 8-figure earners. We text every day back and forth. I usually kick it off with whatever scripture I'm reading and then pictures of the kids. Gary Brecka's on there. Gary's working with Dana White for the UFC. Dana White just got on a podcast and talked about his journey with Gary the last couple of weeks. He's down like 33 pounds, off all his meds, everything. He's just he's transformed his physical body, which in turn has transformed his life. But I have some very amazing friends. Our conference in January, John Maxwell, Ed Milet, Randy Garn, Amberly Laga,
Tony Robbins, I saw Tony Robbins on one.
Yeah, I was with Tony and Dean at Brent Gove, who's one of my guys on that text thread. Brent's one of the top guys at EXP. Brent just had his Build 22 conference in Dallas last month. And Dean was there, Randy. Literally, it was my buddy Jeff I was telling you about from Calabasas, me, Gary, his wife, Brent Gove, Randy, Dean Graziosi, and then Glenn Stearns from Undercover Billionaire, and then Glenn Sanford, the CEO. He's a billionaire CEO for EXP. And then Tony spoke for supposed to be 2.5 hours. He went 3:45. The first time I have ever seen him in person, blew me away. Yeah. But it's just the power of relationships, Scott. And they ask me all the time, how do you get relationships with people like this? And my go-to is, man, I want something for them, not from them. Yeah. Literally, I don't want anything from them. Like, I'm a connector. I'm like even when you and I meet, who do you need to know? Which is why I flew down here that time. Like, who's around you that you don't know that I do that could benefit what you're doing and vice versa?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's your Gary Vee always like talks about that as well. Sort of like you're adding value. It's give, and then maybe ask.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great lesson for anybody, in really any field, in anything that you do, it's really the power of giving. And I talk about stuff, whatever you put out into the world, the good karma it comes back like tenfold, to be honest with you. I think you're a perfect example of that, man. So can you talk to me or us a little bit about like the transitions in your life and how like, you know, because, you know, we were just talking off air. You don't really even, you're a pretty big time real estate entrepreneur. You're like $250 million in sales, something crazy like that. But you're not even running your real estate business much anymore.
No, yeah. I don't wake up in the morning thinking about real estate. We do real estate with EXP. We just closed a couple deals yesterday or day before yesterday. I've done probably close to 300 to 320 million in real estate transactions, but I've got a young guy on my team. He was an accountant full-time making about 70K. I said, dude, come with me. Let me teach you how to do real estate. I do have a passion for taking guys who have never made six figures and helping them make six figures. Like that to me is as rewarding as it is when I get paid. And so I told Chase, I said, listen, come work with me. His first year, he did about 65, 70K, part-time, almost as much as he was making as accountant. And he just left his job last week or week before last to come on full-time to run the team. Like I've handed it to him here. This is your baby. You run with it. Let's basically walk through. I've got the expertise. If you need anything, let me know. But you run this side of the real estate business. And so that's been an easy transition. I've always found that if I'm doing what I feel like God's called me to do, he's put purpose in my heart, and I am building relationships and connecting people and doing what I do, whether it be in my community, my mastermind, my conference, my podcast, my book, any of those kind of things. God always brings the right people in my life. Always, always, always brings the right people in my life. And I shared with you off air just a minute ago, call last week with a legit billionaire. It's funny today because everybody thinks they're a billionaire. Legit billionaire on a call. We had a 15-minute calendar scheduled. We talked for almost an hour and a half. It's like an hour and 27 minutes. And towards the last 10 minutes of the call, he asked me, what can I do for you? I want to do something for you. I said, dude, I don't need you to do anything for me. No. What can I do for you? I said, Vic, you know what you can do? I said, come to my mastermind in Scottsdale, November the 1st through the 4th, and meet the people that I get to do life with. Because there's some guys in there that I think could help you in what I know what he's wanting to do in the future, which he'll be coming out with soon. I know what you want to do. Why don't you come meet some of the guys? I guarantee you there are guys you're going to meet in there that you'll be friends for life with, and they're going to help you. They're going to help you do what you want to do and get it done quicker.
So who are some of those guys in your life, though?
Oh, man, I got Randy Garnes in there. Randy's on the board with Tony Robbins, best friends with Dean Graziosi. Guys like Gary Brecka, who's partners with Grant Cardone and 10X Health Systems. Gary's, helping Dana White right now. He was just on the Kardashians TV show last month. He's one of the top biohackers in the world, one of the most phenomenal human beings. Brent Goes, one of the top guys at EXP. I'll share with you a little bit about Brent. 35,000 agents, 7-figure a month income guy. My buddy Master Jeff, who Forbes magazine calls the Tony Robbins of Persia. Just huge events overseas. Just launched his second or third network marketing company last week in Malaysia and in the United States. Lives in Calabasas, across the street from one of the Kardashians and down the street from Donald Trump's ex-wife. Super, uber successful guys, but amazing human beings. There is equally amazing human beings as they are successful in business.
So, like, what are some of the specifics, though? Like what tangible things do these guys provide in your life? Like, you meet them, you're kind of rolling.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing.
But give me like a specific.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing on the mindset issue. I was at Jeff's at the beginning of the year last year, was out at his pool, and he just said, what are your goals? And I'm not nobody ever asked me what my goals are. I'm usually the guy going, dude, what do you want to get done? Doc, what are you trying to get done this year? I'm the guy. I just spoke at Josh York's Gym Guys annual recharge this morning, which is why I'm here in Long Island in New York City. And that's what I did. I talked about goal setting. What are your goals? Like, my goals are crystal clear. And Jeff looked at me and he goes, what are your goals this year? And I said, I want to make $1 million this year. I said, I want to put $1 million in for myself this year. And he leaned across the table and he looked at me. He goes, a month or a week? I said, no. Our goal this year is 5.192 million in GSD. I said, I want to clear $1 million for me personally this year. And he leaned across the table again. He goes, a month or a week? And I looked at him and I went, he was not letting me settle with that $1 million a year was enough. He was like, I want you to think bigger. Like, I'm talking about some tangible things like that. The amazing thing about our mastermind with all of the different people that we have in, real estate professionals, some of the top podcasts and authors and speakers in the country, We've got some of the top, I said, real estate guys, some of the top multifamily investment guys. I mean, literally, it's all across the board. Some of the top chiropractors, one of the top dentists in a huge DSO of about 150 locations is in there. When we get together in this is what my superpower is. I am a connector. When I get all of those people in the room and watching them connect relationally and seeing the needs that each other has in their, again, our core five are faith, health, relationships, business, and finances. So whatever you need in those 5 areas, there's somebody in that room that can help you get where you want to be and level up whatever area it is that you need to level up in.
So what are the 5?
Faith, health, relationships, business, and finances. And I tell them specifically in that order. Like if you get the faith component down in your life, you get the health journey. And I'm down 82 pounds in 2 years.
Amazing, man.
You know, and I know you lost a bunch of weight as well. Health, and then the relationships. If you get those 3 components and you get those things in alignment in your life, the business and the finances, they're almost organic. I mean, it literally almost just happens. And that's exactly what I've seen in my life over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, man. I mean, you probably grew up like I imagine pretty religious guy.
No, I didn't even know anything. I never went to church till I was 25 years old.
Oh, really?
Ever.
So what motivated that?
I had a friend of mine, the next door neighbor was a youth pastor. He was a student pastor, lived next door. Another guy that I played softball with every weekend, Jason James, they both went to the same church, and they invited me when I was 25. It was the first time I ever heard the gospel. First time that I ever understood, wow, man, God, you created me and you love me. And Jesus took my place and took the punishment that I deserved. Why would I not want to make a commitment to you and really just exercise that faith for the first time in my life? And there was such a transformation in my life at 25 years old. That was August the 22nd, 1993. I was 25 years old. Such a transformation, a ton of people in my life, cousins, brother-in-laws, sisters, best friends that I grew up with. They saw me and they were like, dude, this is a different guy. This is not the same guy before he gave his life to Christ. So yeah, never grew up in church, dude. Never heard, been around it. I didn't know anything. I couldn't, if he told you to open to 1 Thessalonians or the book of Matthew, I would have no idea where it's at. And I had zero ideas. Matter of fact, one of my first Bibles I bought, they have this one, the ones with the little tabs in it where you can see, because I was embarrassed because I didn't know where to open the Bible to. But that really was the beginning of God doing something in me, and really that spiritual gift of being a connector. Like, how do I connect people? And not wanting something for them, from them, but something for them. How do I connect people? And then it was just me connecting people to God and what He had for them.
How long did that take though? Like your first time going to church for you to be kind of
3 weeks.
in?
3
That's
weeks.
it.
Yeah, man. I gave my life to Christ. I went August the 8th, the 15th, 22nd. I gave my life to Christ, got baptized the next weekend. And dude, I was all in. A year and a half later, I was in full-time ministry for about 6 years.
Wow.
Grew a youth ministry. It was a brand new church startup. We had 7 kids. I grew it to several hundred.
Wow.
I was speaking on stages around the country with some mentors that kind of caught notice and went, I don't know who this kid is, but I mean, I literally was doing things around the country nobody else was. Maybe a handful of guys were doing around the country. And it was just God. It was just God moving, and build relationships with guys like John Maxwell and a guy named Ron Luce, who was like one of the top guys that was kind of doing parachurch ministry. They had a big youth conference called Acquire the Fire that they would travel around the country, 10, 12,000 kids all the way up to his stadium events in like the Silverdome in Pontiac and Indy, 75, 80,000 people at them.
Wow. Is this like a Baptist church? What kind of
Just
church?
non-denominational.
Just
Yeah, just non-denominational. Yeah.
So obviously you were all in. You got hardcore into it.
Yeah.
Became a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Were you side hustling real estate this whole time?
I was doing, not then, when I first, after about 6 years of being in full-time vocational ministry in 2001, I traveled with a friend of mine. He played basketball in the NBA for a little bit, played at Pitt, played on the AAU national championship team with Chris Webber and Jalen Rose. Oh, they were ridiculous. And so we traveled and did motivational high school assemblies. We spoke to about 325,000 kids a year. So you can imagine we were on the road all the time speaking to high school assemblies and kids, thousands and thousands of kids a week. And we would speak Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We'd invite them out to an event. Can't share faith in a public school. We'd share faith. We had hundreds and hundreds of kids come to faith in Christ. I did that for a year, and I had 2 small kids. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this, because I was gone. I went to my best friend who owned a mortgage company. He's one of the top mortgage brokers in the Atlanta area. Said, dude, I need a job. He handed me keys to a LS 400 And he said, there's your office. Here's your 2 deals. I'm gonna show you how to work them. And then you're on your own. I made like 146 grand my first year and about the same the second year. And then the third year I went and got my mortgage broker's license and opened up my own shop.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like what, late 90s?
Oh, this was 01 to, I was with Chris from like 01 to 03.
Okay.
And then started my own, like it was Christmas of 04 is when I started my mortgage broker's office. That office is at 14 LOs at one time, Georgia, Florida, Alabama. We were the top wholesale broker for SunTrust and Countrywide 4 years in a row. We blew it up. That was back when mortgages were easy. And then
what happened in 2008?
Woo, that's exactly right. Yeah. So
that's when that's when I got the financing for my office in New York City.
That's
bought $1 million, over $1 million, like right before, in the summer of 2008, right before the market crashed. I would never have been able to have borrowed money like that.
Yeah. You know? No, not now. Or not then you wouldn't have.
Yeah. Crazy. So then what happened in 2008?
Yeah. So 2008, I opened an office. It's funny. I opened an office in Columbus. I hired the number one originator with SunTrust on the wholesale side. My AE, the person she worked for, AE was the same. He was paying her like 25, 30% on the front and the back. I said, I'll give you 50. We'll open an office. You be the office manager. We'll hire some more LOs, and opened that up July of 2007. The week after July the 4th, opened it up, blew it up. The end of September of 2007 was the first round of Fannie Mae guideline changes, where they did away with all the, like, some people say subprime. It wasn't subprime. It was the 580 credit score, 100% loan. Can you fog a mirror up? We're going to give you a loan. We're going to give you a house, which is ridiculous. We never should have been doing those deals anyway. We did that. And then that was in September. We lost about 30-40% of the business. January the 31st rolls around. The exact same thing happened again. The guideline changes. So they were basically making it harder and harder to purchase a home. I had a ton of refi business back then. In February of 2008, I had 11 loans on my desk that were mine. They were my personal deals. A year prior, I would have closed every one of them, made about 55, 57,000 that month just on my own, not counting all my other LOs or my 2 offices. I closed 0 of them because by then there were so many foreclosures going, so many distressed properties, nothing would appraise. And literally that was kind of the beginning of the end.
So like in 2007, you started to feel it.
Oh yeah. The end of September. So September 30th, October 1st of 2007 is when Fannie Mae changed it. They saw it coming. If you've seen the movie The Big Short, phenomenal movie. Movie, unbelievable movie. Yeah, he saw it. He looked at all the 3-1 neg am arms and 5-1 interest only arms, and he's like, "This is going to blow up on somebody," and that's exactly what happened.
So did your businesses dissolve?
Oh yeah, dude. I lost $2.8 million. Had 14, 15 properties at the time. $2.8 million. Yeah, because I literally went from making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month to making 0 in a span of about 3 to 6 months. I mean, it literally dried up that fast. There's not a whole lot you can do. I mean,
so did you go bankrupt?
Oh yeah, filed bankruptcy in May of 2008 on $2.8 million.
Wow.
Yep.
And then what happened then?
I was already. It's funny you asked that. Already when I did my grand opening in July of 2007 at the office down in Columbus, Georgia, we had 120 agents. It was a ribbon cutting ceremony, paper, all the stuff they do. Everybody left that night, and we were. I mean, I'm super successful. We're crushing it. I'm sitting at my desk that night and I just started crying. And I'm like, and I just know God was speaking to me. This isn't what I have for you. And I knew God was pushing me back into.
And you were regularly going to church and all this stuff.
Oh yeah. I knew God was calling me back into full-time ministry to plant a church. And so I had already started investigating, what does it look like if I want to plant the church before all this happened? So when this happened, it was an easy segue for me to walk right into planting a church. And then in 2009, I planted a church. I did that for about 6 years.
But you were broke. Were you broke?
Oh yeah. Oh no, I was broke. Yeah. I was broke.
Where were you living? Like,
I mean, house. I mean, obviously we lost everything we had. My family gave us money to get going. And then I'm a hustler, man.
Yeah.
So, I could sell real estate. So I went right back into real estate.
So even like during those hard times where it was really hard to sell real estate?
Yeah, you could still do it if you knew what you were doing. I mean, I umpire college baseball, I referee college basketball. So I mean, there was always things that you could do, but I just went into hustle.
But you probably went from making this to like,
oh dude, I mean, I went from a lot to little. And it's funny because people ask me about that all the time. My best friend called me. I'll never forget this. My best friend called me. I had to give him money to make his electric bill payment. Dude, he's making like $800-900 million a year. And when I say it turned, dude, it turned so fast. I saw it coming a few months before, but I knew it was inevitable. Like there's nothing we can do. I mean, because you couldn't sell anything because the house prices had dropped 30, 40%. Unless you had ridiculous equity, then you're not going to do that. So I just looked at it and I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Here's what the next 6 months or the year is going to look like. And that's what we did. Rented a house and kind of wrote it out and just worked at doing whatever I could because I knew, again, God was calling us back into ministry. Planted a church in 2009, 2010. Did that for about 6 years, 7 years. And
that was what you were doing full time?
Yeah. I was doing
so
it
that's
full-time.
is like
50K a year. I went from making over 50K a month to 50K a year, but I was okay. I just knew that's what God had called me back to do. And I tell you what's funny. We did that for about 6 years, found out that my daughter, my 23, I've got 4 daughters, 26, 23, 19, 14, found out my 23-year-old at the time was her senior year of high school, found out she had epilepsy. She had a seizure her first day of her senior year of high school, did all the workup, did everything. She's fine. No more seizures, can't drive for 6 months. So it's February of the next year, her senior year, before she could drive. And she started driving again, fine, graduates. We sent her to Birmingham to, it's like a leadership academy for ministry, people that want to do ministry. And they got about 1,000 students in it right now. And sent her there. The next February, we got a call from my oldest daughter, who also went to Highlands College, that Sarah Beth had an accident. She fell asleep in a car, rolled across some traffic, and just rolled up on a curb. And found out that basically she had another seizure. We brought her home, got her tested, sleep deprivation, workup, and that's when they said, hey, she's got juvenile epilepsy. So we knew that. Then we started investigating where's the best place for her to go. Who's the best doctor? So UAB has got one of the top epilepsy centers in America, like 12 doctors that specialize specifically in epilepsy. Got her tested there. They said, listen, she's on the very low end of the spectrum. We can probably get this under control with medicine. She hadn't had a seizure in 3 years now. But that was probably one of the things that's how I transitioned out of ministry and moved back into Birmingham. 2016, yep. 2016 and 2016, 2017, and then went back into real estate. I knew real estate. I was a mortgage broker before. This time I just went on the real estate side.
Like as a broker?
Yeah, I wasn't even a broker. I was just an agent, just working as an agent with virtual properties. Quickly, crushed it. I was number 7 in 2019 out of 3,700 agents. Did $8-9 million in transactions, which in that area I was in is a lot. Crushed it. And then October 2019, ran into a little 5'5" dude named Grant Cardone at a 10X boot camp.
You could sign up for the tennis, like you went to the tennis.
Yeah, I went to the
top your game.
I actually signed up. I didn't even know who he was. I had no idea who Grant was. Saw him on an Instagram ad in October of 2019. I was making 160 grand a year, working 15 hours a week. But dude, we've got that dog in us, man. I'm like, what am I doing? Like people go, you made 150 grand and you were bored. Yeah. I was like, this is not what God has for me. Like there's more in me than what I'm doing. And real estate didn't do it for me. Met Grant on an Instagram thing, hopped on a webinar on a Saturday. Supposed to be 90 minutes, 2.5 hours. He hadn't even come up for air, bro. He's just delivering value. And he pitches his mentorship program. It's like $1,000 for like 12 weeks. I signed up for that mentorship program.
Online?
Yeah, it's all online, Zoom call. And we're like 1,400 people, I think, in that original thing. I signed up for that. I was working, what's crazy is I was working my largest real estate deal ever at the time, $3 million for an African pastor friend of mine in Atlanta. So the property that we had, this is so crazy. Yeah. This is crazy. The property that we had was unlisted. It was owned by about a 70-year-old Chinese guy who doesn't speak English. We had to go through his 22-year-old grad student daughter. She was kind of my interpreter. Yeah. So we go in, we put the building under contract for $3 million. It was a $78,750 commission for me. Largest commission I'd ever had, even when I was a broker. And we go in, and the Monday night we had the webinar with him on Saturday, started the mentorship program Monday night. Monday afternoon, I get a call from the bank. Goes, hey man, your deal's dead. I said, what do you mean my deal's dead? He goes, your appraisal came in at $2.625 million. We're $375,000 short. I'm like, crap. Like it's a big deal for me. That's half of what I made in a year in one deal. And I hop on a call that night on the mentorship call. Grant goes, come to Miami for 10X boot camp. I'm like, how much is it? It's like another $3 or $4 grand. I'm in. So I'm like $5 into Grant. I had no idea who he was, right? I'm like $5K into Grant already. And so Tuesday,
is it because you believed in him, or like what? Like
I had never been around that many people who had more energy than I did. I don't get around people.
All
like
the people that were there were like high energy, like Grant.
Oh, in Miami, yes, and I'll get to that. So Tuesday, I tried to get them to lower the price on the building. Well, they're not going to lower the price. It's $3 million. Our deal's dead. Fly to Miami on Friday.
That's what the guy wanted.
He's like $3 million. I'm not taking because it wasn't listed.
Yeah.
Like it was an unlisted property. He goes, if I don't get $3 million, I'm not going to sell the building. So I go down to Miami on Friday. I sit through 10X boot camp. I'm like, oh my God, it was like a room full of me. I'm like, these people are freaking on. Man, they're passionate about what they're doing. That was Friday. Saturday morning, I walk into a session on becoming a Cardone licensee. Good friend of mine now, Richie Dolan, who's LeBron's mindset, coaches Mike Tyson, coaches everybody. Richie's doing the thing. We get done with that session, and I'm like, I'm interested in this. I walk out in the hallway. It's me, Richie, 2 other ladies, and then Grant walks down the hallway. Looks me in the eye, and he goes, Richie introduces him to me. He goes, puts his finger out my face. Why are you here? And he's little. He's 5'5". He's a little dude. And
so no one would know that if they follow.
No, heck no. But he's little. He's a little dude. And I said, Grant, I'm here for 2 reasons. Number one, I said I want to blow the lid off my mindset of what's a lot of money, and I want to be able to help guys who want to plant churches not struggle financially like I did. And he spent 5 minutes with me. And at the very end, they're trying to drag him out of there to go get on stage because he's supposed to be on stage. And he goes, Ken, if you let me, I'll help you. I said, yes, sir. And so we get done. After he does that next session, we have a Q&A private for the people that had joined the little mentorship program. Excuse me. We walk into it. Did I grab the mic? I pitched my real estate deal, the $3 million deal. Like, here's what I got. And he already calls me preacher now because he's like, okay, preacher. He goes, just buy the building. I'm like, well, what do you mean buy the building? He goes, if you overpay for the building today, whoever buys it from your client in the future will overpay for it then. Okay. We get done at 5:00. I pick the phone up and I call Pastor Steve and I'm like, hey, Steve, I'm down here in Miami with this guy named Grant Cardone at this thing called 10X Boot Camp. Oh, I love Grant Cardone. I've got money invested in Cardone Capital. I'm like, well, fantastic. Let me tell you what he told me to do. He goes, okay, how are you going to do it? I said, I'm going to fly home Monday. We're going to have a meeting and I'm going to ask the seller to hold a seller held second for the $375,000. He did. We closed it on Wednesday. I made $78,750.
Wow. So what does that mean exactly though? Seller hold.
So it's a seller held second. So the transaction price was still $3 million. The bank came with 80% of the 2.625. 80% of that, they had to put 20% down, and then the seller kept a second for $375,000. So they had 2 notes basically.
So they had to pay the guy off.
That's exactly
like
right.
What, a 10-year?
It was a 5-year balloon.
Okay.
It was a 5-year balloon. So in 5 years,
he was cool with that.
Yeah, he was good. And we closed it on Wednesday. I made $78,750. Biggest wire that I at that time had ever gotten. Hopped on the mentorship call. Grant, who's got wins? I got a win. Let me tell you about this deal. And from that point forward, Grant and I have been close.
Wow.
And I went down. That was the end of October, 1st of November. I went down December the 9th. That was the first time I spoke for him there. Shared that story specifically.
So did he tell you that specific structure for the deal?
No. He didn't really tell me. He just talked about just doing the building. Okay. And then from there, I mean, I've been doing mortgages.
Right.
I can figure that out.
Yeah.
My thing was how are we going to do this? They don't have cash to do 80% down or 20% down and $375K.
Right.
I figured that.
It's like 30% down.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do that. Let's try that. And when I called him, he said, let's do it. And we closed it. And from that point, forward, Grant and I've been close. He's been a huge advocate for me, man, pulled me on Instagram Lives. I spoke down at 10X twice. But it all started with there, and it all started with him. And from there, 2 months later, I started GSD, and that was in pandemic hit. I was going to do a conference in Atlanta, May of 2019. John Maxwell, my buddy David Pollock from ESPN's College Game Day, a bunch of friends of mine, and the pandemic hit. And I was going to launch my online course, my online mentorship at that conference in May. Well, COVID hit in March. Well, heck, I launched it that week. I said, we're going to start this week. Here's what it cost. It was like $400 at the time. It's $6K a year now. It was like $400. I had like 29 or 30 people sign up, which was revenue. And that was a 12-week. I think it was a 12-week deal. We did that and we started this year where our goal is $5.192 million. Wow. And that was 2.5 years ago.
So what's the value you offer the folks that are part of this mentorship program?
Yeah. So a lot of
there's multiple tiers I saw.
Yeah. So we've got several things. Obviously, I've got the courses. Our coaching community that I do online is $6,000 a year. I do 2 coaching calls a week, Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday night.
These are Zoom with
8
a bunch
p.m.
of
We
people?
do Zoom call. Yeah, we've got about 35 to 45 entrepreneurs on those calls, all different levels. I mean, I've got them from startup to I got a couple of guys doing over 100 million a year, crushing it. We do that.
So what value are they garnering from this? I mean, they seem like they've already kind of figured it out. Guys
community. So I do 3 things: build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. Those are the 3 things that we do. And I don't care what level you're at. Like let's say Doug Volsky, my buddy in South Dakota, 91 million he'll do this year. His goal is $275K a day in revenue. He's got 20 some odd auto body repair shops all over the Midwest, a lot of storage facility space. And
Which he rents out, or
that he rents out.
Okay.
Yeah. That's his. That's one of his investments. For Doug, it's he is. I call him the sage of GSD because dude, he's been following Tony Robbins for 35 years. He's read every book. Og Mandino to Zig Ziglar to Jim Rohn to Tony to John Maxwell. He's read them all. And for him, it's community. He gets to come in and help, and he does, man. When we have a call like we did last week about developing a wealth mindset, what does it look like to have a wealth mindset? I texted him that day. I said, "Hey, Doug, this is what I'm going to talk about tonight. I would love your feedback and input." Sure, man, I'm there. He's been there since day one.
Is he a paying member, or is he just there?
Oh yeah. No, he pays. Yeah, he pays to be in the group. Yeah. It's a community. So it's confidence, clarity, and community.
So it's kind of like a country club for entrepreneurs. Sort of.
Yeah. No, the mastermind that I have, that's $50K a year. That's really what that is like. Yeah. But I mean, you have access and you're in the room with guys. I mean, I don't care where you're stuck in your business, and even in my GSD community that's online, I don't care where you're stuck in your business. There's people in that room that can help you get unstuck. So it's confidence, clarity, and community. And the community part, obviously being a pastor, which is what I bring. And what we do right now inside of my online community and inside of my mastermind, I don't know anyone in the country that's doing what we're doing with it being a faith-based community and a faith-based mastermind. And even my conference in Atlanta that we do every year with John, and I got John Maxwell. John's coming back again this year. Ed Milet, Jesse Itzler. I mean, the lineup's insane. Yeah. The people that we have coming in, it's a faith-based conference. John this year will talk about faith on Friday morning. That's going to be his. How do I take faith and incorporate it in my life and in my business? That's what John's going to talk about this year.
What are some pearls that I'm sure you've heard him speak about?
John's. I mean, he's the godfather of leadership development. John's thing is, I quote him all the time. You show me your 5 friends, I'll tell you what your future looks like. Let me see what your daily routine looks like. I can tell you how successful you are by what your daily routine, or I always segue that into your morning routine because, me and you both did. I'm up at 4:30 a.m. I'm in the gym. My morning routine is very regimented. Even here, I mean, I'm up. We did workout this morning with Josh and some of the team. I'm up doing what I know I need to do. I love John says, if you think you're a leader and nobody's following you, you're just out taking a walk. Leadership is influence. Man, I can go on and on and on. Yeah. 21 laws of leadership, the law of the big Mo, all the things that John talks about.
What's the law of the big Mo?
Law of this momentum. It's all about momentum, man. And I talked about it on my coaching call last night. I get this past week, I got invited. Hugh Jackson, who's a former NFL head coach for the Raiders and the Browns, dear friend of mine. Love you, Coach Hugh, if you listen to this. He's now the head coach at Grambling State, one of the HBCUs. Mm-hmm. And he texted me, I don't know, a month ago. He said, "Would you come speak to the team?" I said, "Dude, I'd love to." So I actually went in this Friday and spoke to the team Friday night before their game with Jackson State, whose head coach is Deion Sanders now. And so I got to see Deion a little bit on Saturday morning. So I go in, I speak to the team on Friday night, and dude, I'm talking about mindset. And most of these kids grew up kind of like I did, and I grew up in Pontiac. Dad worked for General Motors, kind of a rough neighborhood. Most of these kids didn't have a lot. And so I'm talking, what are your goals? And I got kids raising their hand to go in the NFL. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to make my family proud. I want to play in the NFL. And I talked about mindset, relationships, number one, because it's always relationships. And what I told those kids then was, how many of you guys want to go in the NFL? Every hand in the room, 102 players want to go in the NFL. How many of you guys know your head coach over here was one of 14 African-Americans ever to be a head coach in the NFL. He's been there twice, and he was an OC for like 8 or 9 years. If there's anybody in the world, how many of you guys have went to coach and said, "Coach, can I get 10 minutes of your time today? I'd love for you to tell me how I can be a better player, how I can add more value to the team, and what do I need to do to get the best shot or the best chance possible for me to play in the NFL?" Guess how many hands went up in the room?
Zero.
Now I said, now how many, and their defensive coordinator also played big time D1, also played in the NFL, was also a coordinator with Coach when he was at the Cleveland Browns. Now, how many of you guys are going to go to Coach Thornton and ask him the same thing? Like you've got to lean on these relationships that you have. They're right there. Let me tell you something. If anybody that knows what it takes to get in the NFL, especially on the offensive side, it's Coach. So I go in, I speak to the team Friday night. I'm talking mindset. And God just, right in the middle of my talk, God spoke to me. I said, how many of you guys in here, I've got a course on mindset where I talk about limiting beliefs like fear, insecurity, scarcity, and about 3 or 4 other ones. It's $1,000 a course online. If I gave it to you, would you go through it? Every hand in the room goes up. I said, Coach, I'm going to donate 120 licenses for you guys. Take the whole football program, staff, everybody through that mindset course. 10 minutes a day, take you about 2 months to walk through it. And then you just recycle it. Just keep going through it over and over. I got an email yesterday. I've got a call tomorrow morning. Kimberly is Coach Hughes' assistant, runs his whole life, football, his tequila company, his nonprofit, everything. And Kimberly has set me up with the Urban Radio Network tomorrow to get into 100 HBCUs and to be able to give these courses in there. You want to talk about momentum? That's an insane. I just literally impromptu in the middle of a talk last Friday night said, hey guys, how many of you guys like to go through this course? And now I have a conversation tomorrow. Roland Martin, who's a huge conservative African-American talk show guy, I'm going to go on his show and push this to 100 HBCUs and help get their mindset where their mindset needs to be. It's an unbelievable opportunity. Like that's what momentum looks like. I was sharing with you earlier. Call with a guy who's a billionaire last week. Supposed to be 15 minutes, turned into an hour and 27 minutes. Text me 2 days ago, I'm on a flight going to Dallas to film a TV show. Ken, can you come see me at my property in Montana this weekend? Yes, sir. You better believe I can. Rechanged my whole weekend plans. Hey, got on phone my executive assistant. I need to go here, and here. Get it changed. That is when John talks about momentum. That's momentum. Like right now, there is so much momentum. You know what's crazy? You'll love this. Right in the middle of all this momentum, we had the biggest revenue week ever, the second week in August. I did $102,600 in revenue in 1 week. It was our first 6-figure week we've ever had. Our goal this year is 5.192. So we got to hit 100K every week to be able to hit that, obviously. Those are easy numbers. We hit 102,000. Next week was like, I was mad because it was 13K. Next week was like 57K, 63K the next week after that. And just barely missed 100K week again last week. This week we should clear that 100K mark. Well, I got to the end of August and I'm like, okay, core 5, faith, health, relationships, business, finances. Okay, God, you're doing something really cool. And if you've read Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about the doom loop and he talks about building an S curve on top of the S curve. I'm looking across going, okay, what do I need to do because I know I can feel what's coming. And we talked about growth earlier because we've been following each other for almost a couple of years. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, I need a 90-day reset. I'm going to do a 90-day reset. So I'm going to take each of those areas, faith. I've got all my different things I'm going to do for my faith component. One of them is even going to church. I'm not watching online. I'm going to physically get up and go to church every Sunday. All my quiet time I do on my phone, my worship time I do on my phone.
Did you switch to going like Zooming?
Sometimes,
like
yes.
During COVID? Or?
Well, when they did, yes. But I usually, but you know how it is. You get busy. Yeah. You get busy. It's hard to go. You're like, I can do breakfast and sit here on the couch and watch it. Mm-hmm. It's just not the same.
It's not the same.
No, it's not the same. So I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I raised the level of discipline in those 5 areas. In my health, keto, no alcohol. No alcohol for 90 days. I don't drink a ton, but I like my bourbon.
I know that.
Yeah, I love my bourbon.
I just bought some bourbon. I was thinking of that.
I love my bourbon. And then on the relationship side, I'm single. I said no dating and no sex and no relationships for 90 days. But I'm like, I'm writing this stuff down. I'm like, this is what I'm going to commit to. And then I get in the finance side.
So just go through the 5 again.
Yeah.
So it's faith,
health, relationships.
So basically for your relationships, it was like not to have a relationship.
That's exactly right. I'm no relationships. And then I even stepped up. Okay, with my relationships with my 4 daughters, this is what it's going to look like the next 90 days.
Got it.
Dad's going to kick that into over. And that's exactly what I've done with him. Like I communicate with my kids every day with either if I'm with them or not with them. I communicate every day. Video text, I'll shoot them a voice text. I'll shoot them a text. I'll shoot them a phone call every single day. Doesn't matter where I'm traveling. Doesn't matter where I'm at. On the business side, 75K to 100K a week. Those are the numbers we're going to hit. And then on the finance side, pay off what little debt I have. And I want to identify me a piece of property so I can build a house this year.
So you separate business and finance. They're like two separate things.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, if one's going well, the other one's going to go as well.
Yeah. That's interesting, man. There's a lot to chew on with all that stuff you just said, man.
But I did that at the height.
Yeah.
Like I did that after the best 2 or 3 weeks we've ever had.
Yeah.
I didn't, because our natural tendency as humans is to do what? Take the foot off the gas and just coast. Yeah. You better believe it.
It's interesting that you said that. Like for me, like it's sort of similar. Like I was at a point in my career, this was like 2017, where I had like these 2 offices. Things were like running full steam ahead. I was making a significant amount of income. And I've told you the story. Like it was like, it was the summer of 2017 where I was like, wow, like I've really made it, living in this house in this neighborhood that I used to actually be a service guy in nice, like, Valley Park cars, work in the restaurants, driving to the country club in my Ferrari that I used to Valley Park cars at. And like, I was like, holy shit, I've made it. Like, like this is it. I'm living the dream. I finally made it. I did it for 2 weeks and I realized this sucks. Like this can't be the rest of my life. Like, and having more of what I have is not going to add any value. So when you talk about a reset like that, really it takes a lot of like sort of soul searching. And I think these micro resets are very, very important. Like you're saying, the 90 days, it's 3 months, man, like in a long life. And that could reset the whole trajectory of your next decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also puts you in position to be able to receive what God's about to bring in your life. It puts you in position to be able to, for you to be, and what I said was, I'm going to take 90 days to become the best version of Ken Joslin that I've ever been before. Like that's my goal. And there's things in there, dude. I want a bourbon, man. I went to pool the other day and I'm like, man, a Truly or a White Claw sounds good today. Nope. I was with friends. I'm going to Montana. Vic's a huge bourbon guy. I mean, he's got nice bourbon. And I'm like, and Nate's like, dude, sucks to be you this weekend, right? And I'm like, no, I'm good. But it's just, no. I choose not to have this today so I can have what I know is coming in my future tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like you talked about this earlier about like, all of these things are basically bleed into each other, right? Like all these like, and everyone has different compartments in their life. Like those are your 5,
right?
And I think everyone has like similar, they may call them different things, but they're sort of similar compartments, but they all feed into each other. And like, when you were talking about fitness, how you lost all that weight, like that for me, like my fitness transformation was the single most important thing in terms of my momentum in life that I've ever done. It required a ton of discipline. Yeah. It required saying no to drinking, no to all these things, that before I didn't even think twice about. There was like, I was completely undisciplined, but I didn't even realize that I was so undisciplined until I started getting disciplined about it. But more important than all of that for me was like the power of that transformation. Just to like see like, wow, like I was capable of making this crazy transformation. And every year, like my goal every year is to get bigger and bigger and bigger, is to, just put on more pounds of muscle. Yeah. Like, that's my goal every year. And like the ability to do that, to see that you can actually, set a goal and hold yourself to it and achieve it. That makes me a better dad. It makes me a better husband. It makes me a better doctor. It makes me a better boss. It makes me a better friend. All of these things, they really do bleed into each other, but it all kind of boils down to that discipline and accountability, like holding yourself accountable. So like these 90 days, like, listen, the truth is if you had a bourbon, like it's not going to like screw up your trajectory, right? But it will screw up your mindset a little bit because you didn't hold yourself accountable to a goal that you set for yourself. Have you seen the interview with Kobe Bryant and Patrick Bet-David? Yeah. That's unbelievable. And he asked him about the contract he signed. Yeah. He goes, so you sign a contract with yourself every offseason. I think it was the last interview Kobe did before he passed away. It actually was, yeah. And he goes, I heard you sign a contract. He goes, tell me about the contract. He goes, it's my workout routine in the offseason. He goes, I signed that contract. He goes, what do you do when you get tired? He goes, I get up. He said, once I sign that contract and make a commitment, there's no negotiating with myself. Yeah. Because we're master negotiators with ourselves. But like you said, you went through that season. And look what it's done. The momentum you're experiencing will last for the rest of your life. And the confidence you've built
out of that moment is like, dude, there's nothing I can't do.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing I can't accomplish.
Well, one of the reasons I actually couldn't meet you for lunch today to ask you to do this is because it conflicted with my workout schedule.
Oh, there you go.
Because I had to get it. Like, I'm literally obsessed about it. If I don't get
Yeah.
those workouts in and have like a very regimented workout, it just, like, it's a big mind fuck for me.
Yeah. No,
And like, just like, I'm like really down on myself. If I
well, you don't, all the endorphins and all the stuff that your body releases, you feel like there's times I get up at 4 and I go to the 5 a.m. F45 class and I'm standing there and my pre-workout hadn't kicked in yet. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? But I know in 45 to 50 minutes, I'm going to be like, bro, you can go conquer the freaking world.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can't accomplish after you just did what you did.
Yeah, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So talk to us just a little bit about, I could keep you here all day, man. But about like where people can find you. I mean, I know all the sources, but I want to hear it from.
Yeah, at Ken Joslin on Instagram. That's the best place. GrowStackDrive.com, GROW, Stack, STACK, Drive, DRIVE.
Can you explain what that means exactly?
So here's the deal, and I'll tell you exactly where it came from. GSD is what we call it now. We're 2.5 years old. So I was in a room. We were getting ready to do that conference. So that was going to be the name of the conference we did in January. So I'm in the conference room. My buddy Nate, who worked for John Maxwell forever, my executive assistant, 2 other guys. We've got all these giant Post-it notes. We're writing down like the words that we love the best. Like, what are the words? And everybody had their own Post-it note. Then we went through and we scratched off the ones we didn't like. We circled the ones we liked. And by the end of the whole exercise, we were left with grow, stack, and drive. Like, those are the things that we were
like
going to do.
Stack wins.
Yeah. Like, stack your wins, drive results, grow as an individual. And we did that. And again, a lot of people never get started because they're like, I got to have it perfect. Well, we don't even, like, what we started with GSD, we don't really ever even talk about it anymore. Yeah. It's completely more.
You almost never see it anywhere on your platform. I was like scrolling through your Instagram a little bit. Just to see like where I could find that. You got to scroll pretty far down your feed to actually find that. But it's on like your website's growth.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody calls it GSD.
Yeah.
It's my GSD Elite Mastermind. It's our GSD community. That's what we call it. Which is funny because somebody asked me one day at my conference. They were like, "Does that stand for get shit done? Did you do that on purpose?" And I'm like, yeah, we did that on purpose. No, we did not do that on purpose.
That's great, though.
No, it is exactly what they asked me. Does that stand for get shit done? I said, you better believe it does.
That's awesome.
No, we didn't do that on purpose. I tell you, my favorite quote I've heard in the last 2.5 years was from my dear friend and mentor, Sharon Lecter, co-author Rich Dad Poor Dad. Her and I and Tim Story were doing an event. We were at an event together. And she said, you don't need magic. You need motion. She goes, just move. If you've got a dream, just act and start getting in motion. And Jim Rohn says speed increases focus.
Yeah.
You don't need magic. You just need motion.
It's funny that you said that. And especially particularly with that book, like during the pandemic, I actually read, that was one of the books that I read. I've been sitting around on my, like, I have like a stack of books that, that I'll buy 10 books at a time, but it takes me a little while to get through them.
Yeah.
I love reading, but that was like, okay, so I read that book. And when I was done reading that book, I was like, wow, man. I was like, I'm in like that box where I'm like, just like a worker, like a W-2 guy. And like, I have like really, like I own like the buildings where my offices are and like my office in the city, I own the real estate, but that's like not really, it's like I'm just putting it in one pocket from one pocket into the other. And I was like, wow, it really was like a mind fuck for me. So I immediately, like literally as soon as I was done reading that book, I talked to one of my friend's dads who was like an entrepreneur. He's like big into real estate and stuff. And he knew I was a doctor. He's like, what do you do? I was like, he's like, I know you're a doctor. He's like, what does your wife do? She's a dentist. He's like, oh, okay, it's cute. No, like you guys are doctors and stuff. But you really need to get into real estate.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should buy like an apartment building, I was like, okay. So then I started hardcore looking for apartment buildings like crazy. And then his son is also a very successful entrepreneur. And I actually played golf with him. And he's like, hey man, my uncle is into all these like triple net leases and he's like killing it with it. And he kind of sold me on that. So I was like, all right, that's cool. Maybe I'll do that. Because it's a little less work, like kind of getting into that, So I got a broker and I literally bought I own a Popeyes and a Burger King.
Yeah.
But I literally just did that on a whim after I read that book, realizing I needed to do something.
Yeah.
But motion, man, like I could think about it forever and never pull the trigger. And it was probably like the fucking best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Just like instead of like Grant always says,
take action.
Like don't have your money sit in your bank account. That's like useless. Like cash it is like a, I mean, it's obviously now with all the inflation, it's a declining asset.
Yeah.
Like, it's worth less and less every day. But if you put it in something, it's value, and you're building value. And that was like, it was right after I read that book that I did that. It's exactly what you just said, man. But that's what it's all about. It's all not all about like, okay, I'm going to start my diet after this day or when the timing is right. It's like when you said 90-day reset, it starts now.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right? Like,
yeah, literally, I think I started. It's really not I guess it is 90 days because the 31 days in October. I started like the 2nd or 3rd of September. I'm like, dude, we're doing this. I'm doing this right now. Like, there's so much in my life, and there's so many things that I know that I want to achieve and do. I'm willing to pay the price over the next 90 days to be able to have what I know God wants me to have in the future and impact the lives I know that God's called me to impact.
I love it all, man.
Yeah, dude.
So there's a lot of like motivational like guys on Instagram and gals. And you know, like in all honesty, and I've met a bunch of them too.
Yeah.
Most of them are like really have no substance. Like there's no foundation to it. It's not like a guy like Tony Robbins has this track record of success. He's like, he's a successful guy, Gary Vee, very successful guy. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that, that have a tracker, but there's a lot of guys that don't, and I think what it's important about this, and especially for folks that see a post from you, but they don't know who you are, is like, you're a guy who's like had, and David Meltzer, I'll say as an example as well, like a guy who's like has a track record of success, lost everything, but then built it back up again. There's some like showing that resilience or just showing like making something from nothing. There's a lot of value there, you know, and I think it's important, especially for like the kids out there that are on Instagram or TikTok and like kind of following these motivational figures. It's important to like follow some of that. It's actually what they're teaching is built on a foundation of success. And
they've actually done what they talk about. They didn't see it or read it in a book, and now they're going to regurgitate what somebody else said for them to do.
Absolutely. But you are, I mean, I learned a lot more about you from this conversation. Yeah. And you're certainly a guy that I look up to. You know, I love all your stuff that you say on there. But now learning some more of the backstory and you see the substance behind it, it just makes it that much more valuable.
I investigate, man, before you spend money. I tell people all the time, before you go spend money on, especially on the internet stuff, some of the stuff that we see absolutely drives me crazy. I mean, I got a guy that I know who was in another guy that I know's Rolls Royce, and he took a picture of him in the driver's seat, which is fine, but then he used it and he put one of his quotes over there, which makes it look like what?
That's his Rolls.
It's his car. I'm like, bro, that ain't your car. You've got a brand new Vet. I mean, he's got a brand new 100 and whatever they cost. Just put it in that. Yeah. And I know it's hard. And I knew he didn't do that on purpose. I just said, dude, this is what it looks like. Yeah. And he's successful. But you don't have to go that far. But there's so many people out there, dude, renting cars, renting Lambos, all that kind of stuff. I would say this, authenticity is the key. The first time I heard Gary Brecka talk about authenticity, he talked about how we as human beings, we emit frequencies when we communicate. And he said authenticity is when we have a high belief in a subject and we're very passionate about it. When those two things mix, there's authenticity. The most sought after frequency from human beings is authenticity. So when you get out there and you're real, because of the world we live in, dude, you cut through all the noise. People go, man, there's something about this dude. There's something about this girl that's different. I want to encourage you this. I don't ever plug my podcast, but I will on this one. My 90-day reset that I just did about 2 weeks ago, it is so raw and so real. It's like 52 minutes. I never go over 20 to 25 on my coaching with Ken. Dude, it's so raw and so real because I want people to know what I've walked through just relationally, childhood trauma that I had no idea was even an issue at 54 years old, that just in the last 7-8 months, I'm like, oh my God, that's why I do this, because of this. And I'm learning, and that's been the number one cause for me to go in and do some really deep work.
Like with therapy?
Oh, dude, I'm with 2 different therapists. So one of my health goals is therapy 1 to 2 times a week. And I tell people all the time, I was just on a call. Well, this girl's wanting to join my mastermind. She's a big therapist in New Jersey and huge practice. And I told her, I said, I tell people all the time, therapy is like changing your oil in your car. You don't go to the Toyota dealership in your Land Cruiser when the engine's locked up. You go every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. It literally is just it's preventive maintenance. Now, if you've got some trauma or some things that have happened to you, you may have to have some more intensive stuff done, but it's just therapy. It's just helping you become the best version of you. There's no stigma to going to therapy. So
I love that you said that. I had Bedros on my podcast a while back. He's a force of a human as well. But he talked a lot about, we kind of had a much
Mm-hmm.
more in-depth conversation about therapy. He had a lot of shit to
Mm-hmm.
work on. And like the folks in my life that are kind of like the most evolved are folks that have been through therapy and therapy. It just gives you like a level of introspection and self-awareness, which I think, like you said before, allows you to cut through the noise.
Yeah.
It enables you to be authentic, right?
Well, listen, the people that have done the most have paid the greatest price. I say it all the time. The greater the vision, the higher the price you're going to have to pay to get there. The more people you want to impact, the more people you want to reach, the greater the price you're going to have to pay to get there. And a lot of times it's not just with you learning about business and learning all the principles and fundamentals of relationship. A lot of times it's just with you. Dave Ramsey says all the time, the guy you have the biggest fight with is the guy you shave with in the mirror every day. Like it's you versus you. Eric Thomas, ET, just came out with his new book. I think it's called You Versus You. I think that's the name of the book that Eric just did. It's you are your competition. Great leaders understand that. Nobody else is my competition. It's me. I'm the one that keeps me from being successful.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect place to close, my man.
Appreciate you.
Ken, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you, man.
Honored, my friend.
All right.